All right. So welcome everyone. Thanks for coming. Today we're going to be talking about image SEO and how to optimize your images on your site for the most performance and getting more organic traffic to your site. Now, if you have any questions at all, do put your questions in the chat and then I'll answer them at the end as we go through. So let's get started. All right, so in this video, in this webinar, we're going to be talking about what is image SEO, why it's important for your SEO, your website, and also some of the best practices around optimizing images to get the most traffic. So what is image SEO? It's basically involves enhancing the visibility and the relevance of the images on a site to improve rankings in search engines, both for the pages that the images are on and also for the images themselves in image search. So it goes both ways, which is like a double benefit. It's really essential to on-site SEO because when search engines crawl the sites, they'll actually look at the images, try to understand it, get some more context, and also has to do with the loading speed of those pages. And that is a factor when it comes to ranking those pages in your sites. So there's a lot of things going on here, and that's why we have a separate presentation about image SEO. So here's an example of Google's images. We've all used it. And a lot of these images here are showing because they've been optimized for image SEO. They have the right keywords, they have the right relevance, and they're on pages that are high authority as well. And people searching for images and clicking on, let's say, one of those can land on those sites, and that can bring that site more traffic. So why is image SEO important? Well, there's lots of reasons. Firstly, increased engagement and reduced bounce rates on the actual pages. They're a lot more, they contain a lot of information. And it's like we've all heard that saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, sometimes it can be worth a lot more than that. And just having an image on a piece of content can really capture that attention of your visitor, hold them there for that bit longer, pull them down the content and keep them there. And that is a great signal to Google that that content is engaging. So it keeps them longer, it reduces the bounce rates, and they're all positive ranking signals to Google. Increased organic traffic potential. Well, it provides more visibility in image search results, and that can lead to additional traffic rather than just having the pages in the SERPs. And also, these images create better context for the page content. So that can lead to higher page rankings, more traffic as well overall. So here's an agency tip for those of you who have agencies. So if you want to boost your clients' organic traffic, make sure they optimize their images, and then that means they can attract more traffic from Google image search as well. So this is a big part, and it sometimes it needs to be looked at separately because images are something that we use on sites so often, but it's easy to overlook how it's optimized and these little bits that, however small, do cumulatively impact the overall SEO performance. So also better mobile optimization. So when images are responsive, meaning they resize or there's different versions for different devices, then they'll look better, they'll load faster on those devices and engage the users more. So this will support overall page rankings and increased organic traffic. Increased accessibility and inclusivity. So this enables people with visual disabilities to still understand the images on a web page, even though they may not be able to physically see them. So this is a big thing for people using screen readers. And when they're browsing content and having it read out to them, if there's an image and they can't physically see it, the screen reader will actually go into that metadata, will discover what that actually is, and then read that to them so they can visualize what that image there is. So it creates an inclusive environment for the audience, allows more people to engage with the content, and all of that. appear in rich and featured snippets. So combining the structured data elements like rich snippets basically allows, like schema.org, it allows them to appear in rich snippets and featured snippets within the SERP. So when you're searching like anything, you'll see that sometimes Google has these little images next to the results pages, and that's it pulling in the images from that website. And that will, increase the visibility. It kind of captures attention, increases the click-through rates, things like that. And that leads to more organic traffic. So let's talk about some best practices around image SEO. Firstly, choose original images. So with so many images out there, it's important to stand out in a crowded online landscape, especially when people are browsing through image search. They just scroll and they scan, and if they see the same thing over and over again, it gets boring after a while. So you want to provide authenticity and uniqueness and make it more appealing to users and search engines. So try to make it as regional as possible. And what that means really is avoid, if you can, using stock and common photos that everybody else is using, just because after a while it's been used so many times that it's a stock image where you've seen it before somewhere else. So make them more unique. If it's original content, then it's more engaging. It's more likely that a visitor will click on that image in image search, things like this. So another agency tip, if you're not finding high quality or enough selection for images, you might want to try subscribing to like premium photo sites that have, let's say, a flat monthly fee and commercial use licenses. So there's a lot out there that are affordable. One that I've used before is Envato Elements, which is a great site, and they have some really good quality stuff as well. Obviously, if you want to stay on the free side, you can use public domain sites like Pixabay or Unsplash or things like that. But you might find that there are sometimes like limited selection on there. I mean, other sites have fair usage or accredited like use, so you can use like, let's say, Flickr or something, but you'd have to obviously have like a reference to the source and all of that. So you can use that as well as long as you reference it. Yeah, so choose the right image format. So common image types are BMP, GIF images, JPEGs, PNG, WebPs, SVGs. Those are the ones that you see most often, the file types. So let's explore each type and what they're actually ideally used for, because they're not all ideal for the web. Some are more suited for the web, others are not. Others have specific purposes. So let's go into that. So BMP, so bump map file. So these are rarely used for the web because they have pretty big file sizes, but they can be suitable for certain applications. They've been used, in graphic design and certain textures and things like that. GIF, so these offer basic SEO benefits. They also support transparency and animations, but they have a limited color palette. You've probably seen GIFs before, the animated ones, and sometimes they look a bit grainy and low quality color. That's because they have to compress the images to save that file size, because there's obviously multiple images as frames in a video in there. I mean, the benefit is that you can have it animated, which is great. JPEGs, those are most common on the web. So those are ideal for photographs, complex images, but not suitable for transparency. So if you need the background transparent on, let's say, a website, you don't want to use a JPEG file. It's widely used for its efficient compression, so smaller file size, and it positively affects the SEO by improving the page load time. So JPEG is always a great way to go. Then you have the PNG, portable network graphics. So these are suitable for images with sharp edges. You need like a crisp display, text, transparency. These are really good if you want to preserve the quality while still having a decent file size. Again, it provides SEO advantages, lossless compression, transparency support, etc. So again, this is a great one for the web. And then you have WebP. So this is actually becoming more and more popular these days, because of its efficient compression. So it's really small file size and also support for transparency. So it's almost like an upgrade to JPEGs or PNGs on the web. It's perfect for SEO performance because of its size and all of that. So let's go into SVGs. So SVGs are vector files, scalable vector files that are perfect for icons, logos, any graphics which need to be blown up in like large scale or shrunk to really small size without affecting the actual file size. And this is great for responsive design, for having let's say a logo that appears really crisp and small on a mobile device, but also looks amazing when it's blown up on a big screen on your desktop. And so this also offers strong SEO benefits because of its scalability and small file size. So which one do we choose? So WebP and SVG are the top choices for SEO because of their small file sizes and flexibility. However, if you don't want to, let's say, put everything into WebP format, JPEGs and PNG are also solid and standard across the web. So you can also use JPEGs and PNGs. Now, BMP and GIF files are less suitable for web usage. So try to avoid those because of their limitation, because of their larger file size. So if possible, steer away from those. But yeah, those four definitely look into. So next is giving your file name, your image file, a descriptive name. So the file name and the image before you upload it, it's more than just a label for yourself. It's actually an opportunity to provide context to search engines and users. And what you need to do here is you want to use clear, relevant, concise file names that accurately describes image content. So I'll give you an example here. So let's say we got this image with the dog in the woods by the cabin. So I would name this something like Black Lab with red collar and forest with wooden hut. I mean, that might be a bit overkill. I could shorten that a bit more. It could be like Black Lab in forest with wooden hut or something like that. But now we know what it is. Search engines will look at that file name. They'll get some more information about it and go from there. So next is resizing your images to the appropriate scale. This is another mistake that is easy to make. When you download an image, you tend to forget to optimize it and you just upload it to your server, your CMS, and just think that's fine. But sometimes these images are quite large. And by resizing them, you improve the user experience, you improve the page loading times because you shrink the file size. Remember, the larger the resolution of an image, the larger the file size, which means it's a slower loading because your browser has to download it from the server. And depending on your internet speed or if you're using a mobile network, that can take time. So smaller resolution, again, it doesn't necessarily mean better. If it's too small, the image becomes more blurry, less crisp. So you need to find a balance here. So let's say this picture right here, the original size is 3,432 square, and that's 2.7 megabytes, which is really large for an image for the web. Now, if I resize that to a more web-friendly size, let's say 1024 by 1024, it's significantly smaller. So it's only 233 kilobytes in size. And this is, depending on the application, this is a decent size. Let's say it's a full width on a web page or something like that. It's quite large. That's decent. And we can further reduce that file using other methods we'll go into. So then you want to adjust the images to the appropriate size as the dimensions. So let's say you have like a full width, like for a desktop, a full width web page where the image will stretch to the full screen width. And these days, the monitors, the displays are quite high resolution, like 4K. So that means like over 4,000 pixels wide. So you want to make sure that those images aren't too big, but they're not too small where it looks blurry either. So you might have to create several sizes in certain situations, one for desktop, maybe one for tablet, maybe one for mobile, and things like that. So the exact image size really depends on many factors. So you want to ask yourself, is the width of the content section of the page, is it fixed? Let's say it's 800 pixels wide. So let's say it's a blog post on your CMS. You can usually see like how wide it is when you look at that, or you can look at the inspect it using HTML and look at the CSS code. That's a bit more advanced and stuff, so don't worry about that. But you want to know, does the content expand to the edges of the screen, or does it stop at some point? Is it full width that expands, let's say, to your whole monitor? If in doubt, if you're not really sure, just go with like a rule of thumb. Good desktop width is about 1920. That's like full HD quality, which is a good balance of size versus clarity. Going a bit lower than that, and they might appear a bit blurry on modern monitors. So you want to balance that. That's for desktop. Now, next is compressing your images for faster loading speed. So after you resize it to the right resolution, the next step is compressing it to further reduce the file size. So compression basically reduces that file size while preserving image quality. And there's different algorithms, different ways how the software does it, but it just it takes some information away from the image, but it doesn't affect quality that much or visibly. And again, smaller file size is faster loading time. So that's why we're doing this. So then if the images are being compressed before uploading to your website, you can compress them using the following software. So there's Image Optim, there's imagecompressor.com, which is a good site. There's Squoosh, JPEG Mini, jpeg.io, or kraken.io. So all of these are great resources you can go to and check out and use those for compressing your sites, your images before they are uploaded to your server. So here's imagecompressor.com. I've uploaded an image of a parrot here, and it already compressed it by 71% just by default, with literally like hardly any visual loss in quality, which is amazing. So this one obviously is a full resolution one. I would have resized it before and then uploaded it, but still you can see a lot of the file size has been saved. So if the images are being uploaded can be being compressed while uploading to WordPress, let's say you use WordPress as your CMS, you can use the following plugins, which are great. So eWWW Image Optimizer, Image Recycle, Optimus Image Optimizer, Short Pixel, Tiny PNG, and WP Smush, or Yoast SEO. So all of those are great. If you use other platforms like Wix or Squarespace or any other managed platforms, generally speaking, those sites automatically optimize your images in the background. And they have certain ways to do that. They already kind of predict that users won't know how to do this, and they won't optimize or compress the images, so they'll do it in the background for them. But if you have your own like self-hosted WordPress site or things like that, then it's important to do this beforehand. Next is removing any EXIF data. So basically, EXIF stands for Exchangeable Image File Format. And this data contains metadata about an image. And that includes, camera settings, location information, the shutter information. There's a lot of information that gets crammed into that little data pocket. And it's often unnecessary for website images, really. It's more for like photographers and stuff. It can pose privacy risks because of location information, things like that. So if you don't want location to be shared where the image was taken, for example, all of these things need to be considered. So you want to remove this EXIF data. Again, this slightly reduces file size, not by much, but something. But it also ensures privacy by stripping out that data. So many image compressor tools have this feature built in. You just have to see. A lot of the times they have the little checkbox or an option where you can mark it, remove EXIF data or strip the EXIF data, and then it will do that. So yeah, don't worry too much if it's not. Have a look at the tools that I mentioned. Some will have it, some won't. Or you can just go on Google and search EXIF remover for alternatives. Okay, next is adding an image title. So this serves as a tooltip or a hover text when users place their cursor over an image. So that's what you see. And the image title provides additional context, or let's say a brief description of the image's content, engage the user, and give them a better experience and enhance their knowledge of what that image is about. Sometimes it's common to add a call to action, especially if that image is hyperlinked, so you know what you're going to click on or what it's about. So for example, like this image on Unsplash, I just hovered my mouse over it and this little tooltip came up, black dog outside in sunny autumn forest. So that's the image title that's in the code. And it basically shows to the user, which is really useful in some situations. So next is you want to add alt text for accessibility and SEO. So alt text is short for alternative text, and it's essential for accessibility, meaning for anyone who is visually impaired, who uses screen readers, it provides a textual description of that image as an alternative because they can't actually see it with their eyes. So let's say it also is used for search engines to understand an image more and what that image is about. So here's an agency tip. So to save time on image alt text creation, there's actually some AI tools out there. So if you just search AI image alt text generator, there's quite a few tools you can explore that actually can accelerate, automate the process. And this is particularly useful if, let's say, you have hundreds and hundreds of images and you don't want to spend days and weeks optimizing them manually. This can speed up the process, and they're quite good actually these days. So next, so yeah, like I said, search engines use that alt text to understand the content and the context of an image, and that will further enhance the page SEO that the image is on. You want to be as accurate and relevant to what is in the image as possible, but not going overboard. So write the alt text as if you were describing the image to someone who can't see it. So I'll give you some examples here. So here, this image, I would write something like 2 hands on laptop, sat on table with an SEO analytics software open on the screen. There's infinite ways to really write in alt text. Everyone has a different perspective of what they see or what's important, what's relevant in the image, but just describe it as you would in context of your industry, in context of the content that the image is on, things like that. Use captions to describe images. Now, this is optional, and it just helps with user experience. So this can be valuable for providing more in-depth descriptions or content or context for images. So this is also good for providing info that isn't quite obvious in the image alone, such as like explaining a chart or a graph or any other diagrams that might be more complicated. Now, adding image dimensions to avoid layout shifting. So this is again handled by most modern CMS platforms, but it's worth mentioning for those custom built sites or those sites that don't have this built in. So you want to make sure that image dimensions are provided in the HTML code, and that prevents layout shift phenomenon. So what that is when you load a website, maybe some of you have seen it before on old sites where it starts loading and then content jumps down all of a sudden and it keeps jumping down because more images or elements are being loaded above. And that's really like disruptive and annoying. So adding image dimensions prevents that or reduces that phenomenon because it already creates space in the HTML for the image to load when it has time to load. So this is really important because it ensures a smoother and more predictable user experience. And this all ties back to SEO because the greater and the better the experience you can provide to the user on your content, the more likely they'll come back, the more likely they'll link to it, et cetera, et cetera. And Google will also reward these things. Use responsive images. So if your content management system allows responsive content editing, like being able to switch between desktop editing or a mobile or tablet view and edit differently, then you could experiment with different size images or different types of images for each device type. Again, this is getting a bit more advanced and a bit more work, but it can enhance the user experience for different devices. And make sure that the images will adapt to different screen sizes, make sure they look good on, let's say, a mobile device, that they load quickly, things like that. So here's a great example on Apple. If I load it on desktop screen, you see the iPhone's like on the side and really high resolution. When you load it on uh, like an iPhone or a mobile device, you see that it's a different image. It's the same one, it's just flipped and it's smaller. So this is an example, a great example of responsive, and it's just automatically switches. So you can do that for your images. Try lazy loading. So lazy loading is basically deferring the loading of the images until the user scrolls down the page or until all the other elements have been loaded on that page, and it speeds up the page loading for the users. They can start reading the text before they have to wait for everything to load. And so it reduces the initial page load time, improves the performance of the page. And you can enable this in your CMS, or if you use WordPress, if you use a page speed or a caching plugin, then this is something that you can enable in the settings. So just look for lazy loading. Serve images via a CDN. So CDN is short for Content Delivery Network. And basically, it's a service or a technology that distributes the files of the site or on the server across multiple servers globally. And that reduces the server load, improves the loading speed, especially for people all around the world. And it's most relevant for self-hosted sites, which use a single server, a single hosting provider. This doesn't really apply to like managed sites like Wix or Squarespace or things like that, because they tend to already use CDNs for their website software. So it's more relevant for if you have your own hosted site. Create an image XML sitemap. So this is optional, it's not mandatory, but if you want images to be found more, a separate sitemap file dedicated to site images can help Google and other search engines discover them and index them more efficiently. So many CMS platforms or SEO plugins, they have this feature already built in, like let's say Yoast SEO or Rank Math. When they automatically create the XML sitemap, they include the images in there as well. So you don't have to worry about creating a separate one. It's already built in. But if you do want a separate one, or you have just pages in one of them, and then you want images in another one, you can look at having a separate image like XML sitemap. So here's an example on the hike page. So there's a page sitemap, and you can see I've highlighted all the image references for each page. So each page will actually lists the images on that page and where they are. And so that helps Google and other search engines find them quite easily. Add structured data. So adding structured data can result in your images appearing as rich snippets, like I mentioned before. And so this can help increase click-through rates to your website, and that means more traffic for you. So check schema.org. So if you go to that site, you can look at the different entity types, and a lot of these have image attributes within them. So you can include an image, or where an image is used, within search results for that entity. Let's say an organization could have a attribute for logo, and then you can have a link to the logo file, for example, or there's different ones. Breadcrumbs sometimes have multiple images, so you can see in those specific results, you can see multiple images in Google where it's pulled in. So it's just an opportunity to be more seen in Google by having images show up there. So here's an example. If I type in buy sofas on Google, you can see that these images have been pulled in from those pages as part of the schema, or Google picking them up on the site. And yeah, it just really grabs your attention when you're on there, rather than just having the one above here without an image. It makes you want to click on the bottom three instead of the top one, even though it's ranked higher. These ones grab your attention more. Configure Open Graph and Twitter cards, or I don't know if Elon Musk renamed it as X cards, but I mean, they've always been referred to as Twitter cards. So enables control on how your content appears when you share it on social media platforms. So this includes, including images in these tags, and make sure which images are actually presented on platforms like Facebook or X or LinkedIn, and pulling the right images in. So by default, if you don't have this, it will just pull in like the first image or random image, and then it looks weird because it's not formatted correctly to the ratio and things like that. So that's why if you optimize your open graph tags, make sure you select an image that fits in that space. It just looks good when people share it. So that's it in terms of the content. Does anybody have any questions at all about this? Let me know in the chat, and I'm happy to answer anything. I know we went through a lot of content here. So yeah, just let me know. Anyone at all? Any feedback? Do you learn something? Did you find anything interesting? Just type it in the chat. Oh, is it possible to get a copy of the slides? Yeah, sure. What I'll do is I will put the link in the YouTube recording in the description. So I'll have a link to the slides there. So I'll do that. So just have a look out in your email for the video recording. Yeah, I know. I went quite quickly, but definitely you can rewatch this video over and over again and then go through it, and I love this a lot. Emily, how descriptive should alt text be? So say I add hands typing on a laptop. AI has just suggested a person's hand swiftly typing on a laptop, focused, engaged in the work. Is that necessary? Yeah, that's a really good question. So I would say in terms of the length, um, don't make it too long. Like don't make it like 50 or 100 words. Like that's too long. But something that highlights enough detail that's relevant to the image. So in your suggestion, I would say hands typing on a laptop might be a bit too general, especially if, let's say, you're in industry, like let's say you're in the marketing industry. It might be that you could add some context to that. So it could be, say, professional or marketing professional typing on laptop for keyword research or something, if that's what it is about. Or in your case, a person's hand swiftly typing on the laptop, focused, engaged in the work. Sure, that's cool, but I would adapt that, tweak it to your industry. So instead of a person, could you abstract it to maybe this is a SEO professional, or maybe it's an agency owner typing on a laptop, or engaged in their work. What is the work? Is it what could you like? What kind of context could you say about their work? And that will just give more context to Google as well. Would you set a priority, Rob? Would you set a priority across any of these, as in which would you action first and make the biggest difference to SEO? Yeah, great question. I mean, off the bat, always go for image file size. So make sure that you resize the images. Oh, firstly, make sure they're in the right format. So WebP, if you use SVG is fine, but if not, then JPEGs or PNGs, ideally JPEGs because they're smaller. So firstly, file size, file type, then resize it to the right resolution depending on how you use it. If it's like a small image that you just insert in the corner, make sure it's like small enough, and then compress it, and then upload it. Then once you upload it, make sure that at least the alt text and the titles are well done. And I would say that would be like most of it right there. The rest are just minor optimizations and things you can do if you have some time. But definitely when it comes to like loading speed, you want to look at the image file size.